Symmetry hides under many names in math, and often rewards those who appreciate it. Numbers show up 2 times on a number line with negatives, but sometimes you won't care if it's to the left or the right. You just want to know the number. If a jar floating on water tips too far right or left, it'll fill up with water and sink. If we're wondering if the jar has sunk, does it make a difference which way it tipped? You would remember this as seeing a backwards monkey, and yet it is. Sometimes, negative numbers are like that, relevant under certain context. If we use n as a variable that represents any real number, absolute values of n are noted like this, and they always express quantities greater than or equal to 0. If we know n is certainly not 0, we can say the absolute value of n is a positive number. Negative n and positive n inside these lines that represent their absolute value both equal positive n. Multiplication inside or across absolute value lines produces equal answers. The absolute value of the product of n times v equals the absolute value of n times the absolute value of v. If n does not equal 0, then we can also say that the absolute value of v over n is equal to the absolute value of v divided by the absolute value of n. When adding absolute values, you might come across something like this. The absolute value of n plus v is less than or equal to the absolute value of n plus the absolute value of v. In this situation, we see how the absolute value of n plus v does not equal the absolute value of n plus the absolute value of v. Think about what pattern of n and v generates non-equal answers. Imagine arranging 2 number lines as a cross, one called x, the other y. This equals sign relates x and y and generates a diagonal line. Notice what happens to the left side of the line when we turn one of these variables, variable x, or the number line x, into the absolute values of the number line x. To close this topic, I'd like you to notice what happens to the left side of the line when x is expressed only as non-negative numbers. With this in mind, you're ready to take your first steps in understanding absolute values. Come up with a number for n and a number for v to make the statement above not equal. What pattern between n and v will always produce answers that are not equal? If you're still watching, I want to introduce you to Andre, Ricardo, and Anastasia, whose work is available on pexels.com and unsplash.com, where you can download high-resolution files to use in your projects. That's all I got for now. See ya.